Welcome back to my 3-part retrospective on my top 30 favorite films. Be sure you watch the first part before you watch this one, because there's a couple movies on there that I'd highly recommend. Now, part 1 was mostly about the best movies in regards to certain directors, but this one is more about certain genres. So let's just keep this train going and get on with the countdown. Number 20, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. A little history on this one. As a kid, I never really grew up on martial arts movies outside of Japanese media from Power Rangers to anime during the 90s. So my dad took me one day to see a film called Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. And all I wondered was, what the fuck kind of title is that? It sounds like a Dr. Seuss book about a Chinese restaurant. My dad just told me to shut up and go in blank. Which, to be fair, was the first time I had that mindset going into a cinema. And coming out of it was worth it, because holy fuck, this movie, as I said in my top 10 movie sword fights, blew my balls off. It's just an awesome, beautiful piece of cinema and deserves all the attention it's gotten. The plot is very much a fairy tale set during the ancient dynasties of China, following the master of a lost martial art who wants to retire and settle down with his love. That is until the arrival of a mysterious warrior, which I remember being shocked in the cinema thinking, holy crap, this movie has ninjas? Who steals the Excalibur of the East known as the Green Destiny. What follows is a set of plots and characters with many twists, turns, and some of the finest feats in martial arts ever put to the silver screen, and really captivated audiences young and old back in 2000. Putting director Ang Lee on the map as one of film's finest, and receiving a ton of awards. And yeah, the fight scenes were enough to grab people's attention since they were pretty spectacular, but also manages to tell an engaging and emotional story with some great actors. Chow Yun-fat carries the entire film, and he's just fucking awesome in this, as the classic wise but cool-ass martial arts master. But the best character for me was the newcomer and stunning Ziyan Zi as the gorgeous but quiet princess of the land. A lot of people really overlooked her performance given the two big leads involved, but god damn it, she carried this movie as much as Chow Yun-fat did, doing her own stunts, but also performing a very complicated character for a girl of her age and experience. With a combination of all the filmmakers involved, from its gorgeous cinematography to its epic dramatic score, the film is my favorite in the martial arts genre with epic proportions to back it up. Nothing much else to say. This film is a beautifully crafted, kick-ass movie. Number 19, 1 Million Years BC. I'm gonna make this relatively short because I've already reviewed this movie for Ray Harryhausen's 100th birthday, so if you want to see my full review, check out my review. But nevertheless, 1 Million Years BC is not just a great dino flick, but my favorite of the master of stop-motion animation, being only 3 dinosaur flicks in his library of work. Beast from 20,000 Phantoms doesn't count. I remember renting this from my grandmother's local Blockbuster back in the day on VHS and falling in love with how much awesomeness the effects and dinosaur scenes played out. It's kind of lacking in story and historical accuracies, but it doesn't stop it from being a special effects spectacle with the stop-motion dinosaurs, an epic tragic score, and yeah, Raquel Welch looks pretty nice, all things considered. Short-listed analysis, but again, I've already covered it. This is my favorite Ray Harryhausen film, and one of the pinnacles of dinosaur movies. Check it out, you won't be disappointed. Number 18, Batman Returns. I have plans to talk about this movie a little more in depth with the original Tim Burton film, but looking back 30 years later since its release, holy shit, it's as old as I am, Batman Returns is personally for me my favorite Batman movie, and yeah, my favorite superhero movie. The reasons are simple. This set the tone of a Batman movie perfectly, and was the closest we ever got to a hard R film with the Caped Crusader. At the time, Batman was still considered a product for kids, but director Tim Burton, with a blank check from Warner Brothers, said fuck all that and made a ballsy, dark, and sick flick set in the Christmas season of Gotham City. You know what? Fuck it, it's my favorite Christmas movie too, for its tone and incredible haunting music by Danny Elfman. And the cast? Good lord, they're all great. Michael Keaton gives a lot more levity back in the role of Bruce Wayne, who is more laid back but also very investigative. But as Batman, he brings not only more brutality, but a real tragedy in finding love in his life. And by the end of it, you feel the same pain he does.
What did it say? Split. Right up the center.
Danny DeVito, perfect casting as the Penguin. What else can I say? This guy is a quacking, crazy nutball. Christopher Walken, hilariously evil as Max Schreck.
She tries to blackmail me. I'll drop her out a higher window.
Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman. God, she's not only sexy as fuck, but also one of the best performances of the movie, adding a sinister, seductive presence, but also a tragic sense of wanting. The whole film is a tragic story of many cautionary tales, both in the plot and the behind-the-scenes drama. But they don't take away for how much I love this movie. It's a dark holiday classic that no other film has ever perfected in the tone for the mythical Dark Knight. Number 17, South Park. Bigger, longer, and uncut. South Park was a game changer for television back in the late 90s, and I'm not gonna lie, I used to sneak around trying to watch it as a kid. While I was too young to see the movie when it came out, not gonna lie, watching it later on, I never laughed so hard at a movie, becoming easily my favorite comedy. It took the show's basic simple but ballsy humor and characters and upped it to 11 on the silver screen, which, while many other big epic South Park stories, never really matched the scale with the first film. And it's not just hilarious on many aspects from slapstick to satire, but it's also surprisingly an epic musical. It's pretty obvious now that creators Trey Parker and Matt Stone are big musical guys, but this film was pretty ballsy to pull that off for, well, the South Park movie. It didn't need to try this hard, but it did and left a big impact on me, with its important messages on censorship, free speech, and the youthful resistance that kids need and we should allow.
That movie has warped my fragile little mind.
Of all the things that need a theatrical sequel, I think South Park needs it because missing out on this in theaters, I'd love to see these kids on the big screen on this type of scale and with their outlandish humor. But if not, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut is a gem of late 90s comedy and had real balls to drop that everyone sucked.
How would you like to suck my balls, Mr. Garrison? Holy shit, dude.
Number 16, E.T. the Extraterrestrial. Steven Spielberg's personal magnum opus is easily a given on this list, being one of Universal Studios' best films and a timeless classic, much like the Master's later and past flicks. The plot centers around a boy named Elliot who befriends an alien left on Earth who share an incredible bond of friendship in a series of wonderful and suspenseful adventures. The film may be one of Spielberg's best, but it's also the definitive Spielberg movie, laying the groundwork and formula for what would be given his, and in a way, E.T.'s magic touch, with many films being inspired by the film's themes of family, friends, whimsical mysteries, and the pure magic of cinema with some amazing special effects and one of John Williams' greatest scores to date. I've already covered this movie in a review, shot at the E.T. adventure at Universal Studios Florida, which was pretty cool, so more attention can be given there, and rightfully so, being a childhood classic and one of my favorites of Steven Spielberg's, which there's more to come later on in this list. Either you've seen it countless times or never seen it at all, take a flight with this flick and enjoy the magic.
I'll be right
here. Number 15, Zorro. Well, this may be a surprise to some, but maybe a predictable one. As much as I love The Mask of Zorro and other incarnations of the character, the 1975 Zorro is my favorite adaptation of the masked hero created by Johnston McCulley. With a simple plot to keep the attention, the film is a fun, flashy sets of swords and swashbuckling romantic adventures. Alain Delon is a charming, heroic Zorro, Stanley Baker is a love-to-hate villain, and Octavia Piccolo is a rebellious beauty on screen. Not to mention the time it was made being one of the best in the spaghetti western genre. You may not like this adaptation, and yeah, sure, other incarnations might have better quality, but this one is worth checking out just for a fun ride. Again, I've reviewed this movie in more detail, but it needs more attention and love out there, because Zorro is a hero we can all aspire to be, and this film shows the sly fox at his best. Number 14, The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Now here's a movie I have yet to fully cover, and desperately do, because as much as I give love to the likes of The Lion King or Toy Story, this is the definitive film from Walt Disney Animation. When it came out, it wasn't as loved as expected, but today, it's beloved by many, including myself. I saw this movie in theaters not really understanding how powerful it was with its adult themes, but watching it with adult eyes, it's shocking how much fucking balls this movie had for the time. It's a dark gothic epic and one of the biggest scaled flicks Disney has ever put out, from its music, animation, and one of the company's greatest villains. You'd never think an actor like Tony Jay, who has been through the roles of Megabyte to a fucking meme,
we've got to have money,
could carry the sheer utter weight of this film, and damn it, he wasn't appreciated for it as Disney's most complex and sinister baddies. I mean, the plot is just a standard simplified version of the Victor Hugo novel about a hunchbacked, deformed character who falls in love and wants to be accepted in society, but it was a real game changer that today they've never really surpassed, and because of those risks, I consider it the best, both as a written adaptation and the sheer scope of it all. I want to do a full-on review of this thing someday, because while many have and continue to do, you can see why. Disney will never push boundaries like this again, and when a studio can take chances like that, they become a favorite for me. Overall, The Hunchback of Notre Dame may have had bells to ring, but it's got major balls of steel to show and stun its audience. Number 13, Mary and Max. Now, here's a film you would never expect to be on here, and or may have never heard of. Mary and Max was a small but critical darling in 2009, but didn't really or gets the recognition it deserves. And that's a real shame, since it tackles a subject that not many can get right. Okay, what's the story? The film is a stop-motion feature about a little girl named Mary living in an abusive household who doesn't really have any friends. So she writes a letter to a random toss of the dice that lands in the New York apartment of a middle-aged man named Max, voiced by the late Philip Seymour Hoffman, who deals with a challenging adult lifestyle with Asperger's syndrome, a somewhat outdated but variant of autism. The two over time become pen pal best friends, which, while never meeting in person, have quite a life both in their ups and downs. And I'm just gonna stop there because that's all you need to know. I don't want to give too much away, but what makes this film a masterpiece is not just taking certain subjects and applying them into stop motion, which I love to death, but deals with the most accurate portrayal of the autism spectrum I've ever seen put to media. I know a lot of people personally on the spectrum, and I've been quite the advocator in supporting them to get them out of the stigmas and to be normalized in society by helping a few worthy organizations here and there. And doing a lot of studying, very little does Hollywood, let alone any mainstream media, ever get it right. Before that, films like Forrest Gump or What's Eating Gilbert Grape was all they taught in education on what it's like to deal with people like this, and it really bugged me growing up. But watching Mary and Max on TVO was a stunning revelation, and major props have to be given to the late Philip Seymour Hoffman, providing the voice of Max and describing what autism is perfectly.
I find the world very confusing and chaotic because my mind is very literal and logical. I have trouble understanding the expressions on people's faces. I'm hypersensitive, clumsy, and can get very concerned. I like solving problems. And finally, I have trouble expressing my emotions.
This was the first and only few films that 100% understood this disorder and knew it had to get it right, making it one of my favorite films and one of the best stop-motion films of all time. Even if it wasn't animated, it makes this list for being a damn emotional story. No spoilers, but this movie's gonna leave you in tears by the end of it. It's a film I've been advocating for years to heads of organizations to watch, and I'd recommend it to everyone as a film that gets it right. Kinda hard to find it in the market, but if you look hard enough, it's a film that is worth the money to watch, and ultimately, to learn. Number 12. Edward Scissorhands. As a kid, this movie terrified me. I know, weird to say, right? In a way, it was my E.T. in comparison to kids in the 80s. It's meant to be an innocent film, but for open-minded kids, it's pretty scary for the visuals alone. But as an adult, as much as I love Batman Returns as the best Batman movie, Edward Scissorhands to me is Tim Burton's magnum opus. The plot is really a collage of Frankenstein and Beauty and the Beast about a man-made created being named Edward, played by Johnny Depp, who is brought out of his habitat to Suburtanbia to live amongst society. But because of his abnormal features, exploited usage, and falling in love at first sight, society eventually turns on him, and ultimately, it becomes a tragic fairy tale. You could say this is Tim Burton on overkill, but the guy put a lot of his best eggs in one basket, from its production design, camera work, lighting, and one of my favorite Danny Elfman scores of all time. But it's the three leads that all make it work. Johnny Depp is fantastic as Edward, creating essentially a goth boy Frankenstein monster that a lot of us can relate to. Winona Ryder is surprisingly stunning with grace and heart for the beast to her beauty, and...
I didn't.
Good God, Anthony Michael Hall as Jim is the best jock bully character of cinema. He is such an asshole, you grow to love him for that. Not to mention, another killer achievement for Stan Winston and his team designing the functionality of Edward, along with a stellar final bow for one of horror's greatest icons, Vincent Price. The film is a loving combination of a Universal monster movie and a classic fairy tale. In fact, a lot of movies you've seen on this list have been the fairy tale type, haven't they? I guess you could say I'm just a sucker for classic stories. But yeah, this one is one of the best, and easily my favorite Tim Burton movie, hands down, bar none. I know you like Nightmare, but I'm sorry, this cuts the cake. No pun intended. Number 11. Spirited Away. Not only is this my favorite film and the everlasting love I have for anime as an art form, but truthfully, Hayao Miyazaki's Spirited Away I can brand as my all-time favorite animated film, and all the praise the more, since it was an Oscar winner for Best Animated Feature. While the film is basically an Alice in Wonderland or Wizard of Oz story of a little girl in a fantasy land trying to get back home, what makes it superior to all of them is a real sense of creativity and imagination from the filmmakers, and the vast array of lovable characters. Chihiro has one of the best story arcs for a character like this. She starts off as an annoying pest, but as the film's weight rests on her shoulders, she grows and develops to a much stronger being that not many movies of this nature can perfect so well, with all the credits to the many voice actors who played her around the world, the animators at Studio Ghibli, and Miyazaki himself for writing such a brilliant creative story. Out of respect for the film and, well, copyright being kind of bullshit with Japan, I don't want to show too much, but to just tell you to go watch the film. It's another movie I saw on a whim with my dad, being lucky enough to see it in theaters, and came out of it utterly in love with the film, especially for the time when my anime interest was peaking. It just needs to be seen to be believed, and worth all the praise it gets. Trust me when I say this is peak animation and peak anime for me. Just freaking watch it. It's truly a spiritual masterpiece. Tune in for part 3 as we take a look at the top 10 best.